At 55, she started from zero. Margaret Sullivan stood in the doorway of her daughter's bedroom, staring at the stripped mattress and empty closet. The silence was deafening. No music blaring from behind closed doors. No arguments about curfews or college applications. Just silence, thick and suffocating, pressing against her chest until she could barely breathe. 3 weeks ago, this room had been full of life. 3 weeks ago, she'd still been a mother, a wife, someone with a purpose. 3 weeks ago, she hadn't known that everything she'd built over 33 years could collapse in a single afternoon. The letter sat on the kitchen counter where Robert had left it, weighted down by his house keys and wedding ring. She'd read it so many times the creases were beginning to tear, but the words never changed. Margaret, I can't do this anymore. I haven't been happy for years. I've met someone who makes me feel alive again. The kids agree this is for the best. We think you need time to figure out who you are without us. The house is paid off. I've left enough in the joint account for 6 months. Please don't contact us for a while. We all need space. Robert, we all need space. The words had haunted her for 21 days. Not just Robert, the kids too. Emily, her 28-year-old daughter who worked in marketing in Seattle, had sent a brief text. Mom, Dad told us everything. I think this is probably healthy for everyone. Take care of yourself. 21 words. That's all Margaret got after 28 years of motherhood. Her son, Jake, 25 and living in Austin, hadn't even texted. He'd just changed his relationship status on social media from listing her as his mother to showing nothing at all. She'd only noticed because her sister Linda had called, horrified, asking what had happened. Margaret walked to the kitchen and sat at the table where they'd eaten thousands of meals together. The chair creaked. It had always creaked, and Robert had never fixed it. She'd stopped asking him to fix things years ago. When had that been? When had she stopped asking for what she needed? She was 55 years old. She had a high school diploma and 30 years of experience being a housewife and mother. The joint account Robert mentioned had $8,000 in it. The house was paid off, yes, but property taxes were $6,000 a year. She had no job, no career, no recent work experience, and apparently no family who wanted her around. Margaret put her head down on the table, and for the first time since she'd found the letter, she cried. Not the silent tears she'd shed every night lying in bed. This was something deeper, something that came from a place she didn't know existed. A howling, gasping sob that shook her entire body. She cried until she had no tears left, until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen. Then she lifted her head, wiped her face with her sleeve, and looked around her kitchen. Okay, she said aloud to the empty house. Okay. Margaret spent the next week in a fog, moving from room to room like a ghost haunting her own life. She slept erratically, ate crackers and cheese when she remembered to eat at all, and avoided her phone. Linda called every day. Her neighbor Patricia knocked twice. She ignored them both. On day 28, exactly 4 weeks after finding the letter, Margaret woke up at 5 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling and realized with sudden clarity that she had a choice. She could stay in this fog, or she could do something. She got up, made coffee for the first time in a week, and pulled out a notebook from the junk drawer. At the top of the page, she wrote, "Taking stock. What I have, a house, paid off, $8,000 in the bank, a 2011 Honda Civic, paid off, 140,000 miles, a high school diploma, 33 years of life experience as a wife and mother, basic computer skills, email, social media, online shopping. I can cook, I can sew, I can garden, I can organize anything. What I need, income, purpose. Maybe eventually, people who don't think I need to find myself. What I will not do. Beg Robert or the kids to take me back, fall apart, give up." She stared at the list for a long time, tapping the pen against her teeth. Then she added one more line. "What makes me angry? Being thrown away like I was nothing." 33 years dismissed as if they didn't matter. Being told I need to find myself when I was right here the whole time. The anger felt good, clean, clarifying, better than the fog. Margaret picked up her phone and called Linda. "Oh, thank God," her sister answered on the first ring. "I was about to come over there and break down your door." "I need help," Margaret said. "Can you come over?" "I'm already in the car." Linda arrived 20 minutes later with a bag of groceries, a laptop, and her characteristic no-nonsense energy. At 61, Linda had been a high school principal for 20 years before retiring last year. She had short silver hair, reading glasses on a chain, and the ability to make anyone feel like they were capable of anything. "First things first," Linda said, unpacking the groceries. "You're going to eat actual food, then we're going to figure this out." Over scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee, Margaret showed Linda her list. Linda studied it quietly, then looked up. "This is good. This is really good. You're thinking clearly." "I don't feel like I'm thinking clearly." "Trust me, you are. Most people in your situation would still be in bed. You're making lists and asking for help. That's step one." Linda tapped the notebook. "Now let's talk about income. You need money coming in. The question is, what can you do that people will pay for?" "I don't know. Who's going to hire a 55-year-old woman with no job history?" "We're not going to find you a job," Linda said firmly. "We're going to create one. Look at this list. You can cook, sew, garden, and organize. What if we start there?" Margaret frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if you started a business doing one of those things? From home, low overhead, something you could build slowly." "Linda, I can't start a business. I don't know anything about business." Neither did Martha Stewart when she started. Neither did thousands of women who turned their skills into income. You think every successful person knew what they were doing when they started? They figured it out as they went. Linda pulled out her laptop. "Let's just explore. No pressure. We're just looking at possibilities." They spent the next 3 hours researching. Personal chef services. Too much startup cost for professional insurance and licensing. Professional organizing. Possible, but required transportation and working in other people's homes, which felt overwhelming. Gardening services. Same problem, plus physical labor that might be hard to sustain. Margaret was starting to feel defeated again when Linda suddenly sat up straight. "Wait, what about baking?" "Baking?" "Your pies, Margaret. Your cookies. That apple crumb cake you make every Christmas. People have been begging you for your recipes for years. What if you sold baked goods?" Margaret blinked. "Who would buy my baked goods?" "Are you kidding?" "Do you remember Emily's graduation party? People were fighting over the last piece of your cherry pie. And that lemon lavender cake you made for Patricia's retirement? She told everyone in the neighborhood about it." That's not real baking. That's just home baking." "That's exactly what people want right now." Linda was getting excited, typing rapidly. "Look, cottage food laws. You can sell certain baked goods from your home kitchen without a commercial license. Every state is different, but let me check California." She scrolled quickly. "Yes, California allows it. You can make up to $50,000 a year in gross sales from your home kitchen. You have to register, follow some rules, but you can do it." Margaret felt something flutter in her chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the shadow of it. "I don't even know where to start." "That's what I'm here for." We start small, really small. We test the idea. You pick 1 or 2 things you're really good at making. We take some photos. We tell a few people. We see what happens. Linda reached across the table and took Margaret's hand. "You don't have to know the whole path. You just have to take the first step." Margaret looked down at their clasped hands. Linda's were spotted with age and strong from years of gardening. Her own looked older than she remembered. When had that happened? "What if I fail?" "What if you succeed?" Linda squeezed her hand. "Besides, you're already at rock bottom, honey. There's nowhere to go but up." It took Margaret another week to work up the courage to start. Linda came over every day, and together they figured out the legal requirements. Margaret registered her business with the county health department under cottage food laws. She ordered food-safe packaging. She designed simple labels on Linda's laptop. Just her name, Margaret's Kitchen, and a list of ingredients. "What about social media?" Linda asked. "You need an Instagram account, maybe Facebook too." "I don't know how to do business social media." "It's the same as regular social media, just with pictures of food. Come on, I'll help you set it up." They created an Instagram account, at Margaret's Kitchen. For the profile picture, Linda took a photo of Margaret in her kitchen, wearing her favorite blue apron, smiling despite her nervousness. It took 40 tries before they got one where Margaret didn't look terrified. "Now you need content. Let's start baking." Margaret decided to start with 3 items: her famous apple crumb pie, her chocolate chip cookies, which used brown butter and a secret ingredient, a touch of espresso powder, and her lemon lavender pound cake. Classic, reliable, things she could make in her sleep. That first day, she baked 1 pie and 2 dozen cookies. Linda photographed everything with her phone, showing Margaret how to find good natural light by the kitchen window. The photos looked surprisingly professional: golden crusts, melted chocolate chips, the perfect crumb structure of the pound cake. "Okay," Linda said, uploading the photos to Instagram. "Now we write a caption." "Keep it simple." Margaret typed slowly. "Starting something new. Made with love from my kitchen. Apple crumb pie, brown butter chocolate chip cookies, and lemon lavender pound cake available by order." "Add a few hashtags," Linda instructed. "People search by those." They added hashtag home baking, hashtag cottage food, hashtag pie baker, hashtag homemade cookies, hashtag baked with love, hashtag support local. "Now what?" Margaret asked. "Now we wait. But not passively. You need to tell people. Share it on your personal Facebook. I'll share it. Text some friends." Margaret's stomach clenched. What if nobody orders anything? Then we try again. "But Margaret, you have to actually try. You can't fail if you don't try, but you also can't succeed." Margaret took a deep breath and shared the post to her personal Facebook page. She hadn't posted anything since before Robert left, and she felt exposed, vulnerable, but she did it. Then she texted Patricia next door. "Hi, Patricia. I started a small baking business. If you're interested in ordering anything, I posted about it on Instagram and Facebook." Patricia's response came within minutes. "Oh, Margaret, I've been so worried about you. I would love to order a pound cake. Can I pick it up tomorrow?" Margaret stared at the message, tears pricking her eyes. "You got an order!" Linda cheered, reading over her shoulder. "See? First customer. She might just be being nice." "Who cares? Money is money. Nice or not, she's paying you for your skill. Now quote her a price." They'd researched pricing that morning. A homemade pound cake from a professional bakery ran $35 to $45. Margaret had nervously suggested $20. "Absolutely not," Linda had said firmly. "You're undervaluing yourself already. Your ingredients are premium. Your skill is real. Your time matters. $35 minimum." Now texting Patricia, Margaret's thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then she thought about Robert's letter, about being told she needed to find herself, about 33 years dismissed as worthless. $35 for a full-size lemon lavender pound cake, she typed. "Pick up tomorrow afternoon?" "Perfect, I'll take 2. See you at 2 p.m. Margaret looked at Linda, who was grinning. "You just made your first $70. How does it feel?" "Terrifying," Margaret admitted. "But also... good?" "Good. Now, let's bake those cakes." Patricia picked up her cakes the next day, gushing over how beautiful they looked and how wonderful they smelled. She paid in cash, actual bills that Margaret folded carefully and put in an envelope. "Can I post about these on Facebook?" Patricia asked. "My book club ladies would go crazy for these." "Of course," Margaret said, trying to sound casual even though her heart was racing. That evening, 3 women from Patricia's book club placed orders. 2 wanted pound cakes, 1 wanted a pie. Margaret stayed up late baking, and Linda came over to help package everything. By the end of the first week, Margaret had made 14 sales and $490. She'd reinvested $150 in ingredients and supplies. Her net profit was $340 for 1 week of work. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The second week, something unexpected happened. A woman named Carol, who Margaret didn't know, sent a message through Instagram. "Hi, my friend Patricia gave me a slice of your lemon lavender cake, and I need to order one for my mother's 70th birthday. She's been sad because her favorite bakery closed. Can you do custom orders?" Custom orders. Margaret's hands shook as she typed back, "What did you have to in mind?" Carol wanted a 2-layer cake with lemon filling and lavender buttercream frosting, decorated simply with fresh flowers. She sent inspiration photos. Margaret had never made anything like it. She called Linda, panicked. "I can't do this. I don't know how to do fancy layer cakes." "So learn. You have YouTube. You have time. How much is she paying?" "I haven't quoted her yet." "A custom 2-layer cake with fancy frosting? That's at least $75 to $100. Quote her $85. "That's too much." "Margaret," Linda's voice was firm, "stop undervaluing yourself. This is skilled labor. This takes time and talent. Quote her $85. Margaret did. Carol agreed immediately. Margaret spent 2 days watching YouTube tutorials on leveling cakes, making Swiss meringue buttercream, and decorating with fresh flowers. She practiced on a small trial cake first, which came out lopsided but tasted good. The second attempt was better. When she delivered the final cake to Carol's house, she held her breath as Carol opened the box. Carol gasped. "Oh my God, this is gorgeous. This is better than I imagined." The cake was simple but elegant, perfectly level layers, smooth lavender frosting, decorated with fresh edible flowers and a dusting of dried lavender. It looked professional. "My mom is going to cry," Carol said, handing Margaret cash. "Can I post this on Instagram and tag you?" "Sure," Margaret said, trying to keep her voice steady. That post changed everything. Carol's Instagram post went up on a Saturday morning. She had 3,000 followers, not huge, but not nothing. The photo of the cake was beautiful, shot in perfect natural light on her mother's dining table. The caption read, "Mom's 70th birthday cake from at Margaret's Kitchen, a local home baker who is amazing, lemon lavender perfection. If you're in the Bay Area, you need to order from her. # support small business # home baker # custom cake." By Saturday evening, Margaret had 42 new Instagram followers and 11 order inquiries. By Sunday morning, she had 200 new followers and 37 inquiries. By Monday, someone had shared Carol's post to a popular local Facebook group called Bay Area Foodies, and Margaret's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. "Linda," Margaret called her sister in a panic. "Something's happening and I don't know what to do." Linda came right over. They sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through dozens of messages asking about orders, prices, availability, and whether Margaret could do wedding cakes. "Okay," Linda said, her principal voice fully activated. "This is good, but you need systems. You can't just respond to everyone randomly. Let's make a plan." They created a simple order form using Google Forms. They set up a separate email address for business. They established a price list and a clear schedule. Margaret would take orders through Wednesday for weekend pickup. She'd bake Thursday through Saturday. Sundays and Mondays were off. They also decided on a maximum number of orders per week, 15. Margaret was one person working out of one home kitchen. She had to be realistic about capacity. "But what if people get mad that I can't take more orders?" Margaret worried. "Then they can wait or they can go somewhere else. You're not Amazon. You're a craftsperson. Limited availability creates value." Linda looked at her seriously. "You also need to take care of yourself. Don't burn out before you even get started." Margaret sent out a carefully worded Instagram post explaining her new ordering system, her limited weekly capacity, and when slots would open for the following week. She expected pushback. Instead, people responded with enthusiasm and respect. Take care of yourself. Quality over quantity. Worth the wait. That week, Margaret filled all 15 order slots. She made $1,100. After costs, she netted $780. She stared at the number in her ledger notebook. In 2 weeks, she'd made more than $1,000 in profit, doing something she loved, from her own kitchen. She picked up her phone and, before she could talk herself out of it, she took a selfie in her kitchen, flour on her cheek, wearing her blue apron. She looked tired, but genuinely happy. Really happy, for the first time in months. She posted it with the caption, "Week 2 of Margaret's Kitchen. Thank you to everyone who has trusted me with your celebrations and sweet cravings. Every order means the world to me. Baking has given me purpose again, and I'm so grateful. Slots for next week open Wednesday at 9 a.m. The post got 500 likes and dozens of supportive comments. One comment stood out, "Your smile says it all. This is what starting over looks like. Inspiring." Margaret read it 3 times, tears blurring her vision. Starting over. At 55. That's exactly what she was doing. Fall turned into winter, and Margaret settled into a rhythm. Order window Wednesday morning. Shopping for ingredients Wednesday afternoon. Prep work Thursday. Heavy baking Friday and Saturday. Pickups Saturday afternoon and evening. Rest Sunday and Monday. Content creation and administration Tuesday. Linda had insisted she learn to post regularly on social media, at least 3 times a week. Margaret resisted at first, feeling awkward and self-conscious. But slowly, she found her voice. She posted photos of her process. Butter and sugar creaming in her standing mixer. Cinnamon and sugar being sprinkled over apple slices. Finished products cooling on wire racks. She wrote short, honest captions about what she was baking and why she loved it. There's something meditative about rolling out pie crust. It requires patience and a light touch. You can't force it or rush it. You have to work with it gently. Maybe that's a metaphor for life. Maybe I'm overthinking pie crust. Either way, apple crumb pies are ready for pickup tomorrow. Her followers grew steadily. By December, she had 2,000 followers, small compared to influencer accounts, but each one felt real and engaged. They commented on her posts, they asked questions, they shared her content, and they ordered. Every week, her 15 slots filled within minutes of opening. She had a waiting list. The money was adding up. By the end of 3 months, Margaret had made $12,000 in gross revenue and $8,400 in net profit. She'd paid her property taxes, bought winter clothes, and fixed the leaking faucet in the bathroom that Robert had never fixed. More importantly, she had a routine, a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. She also realized she hadn't thought about Robert in days. In mid-November, Margaret posted about taking holiday orders. Pies for Thanksgiving, cookies and cakes for Christmas parties, gift boxes of homemade treats. She expected her usual steady interest. Within 2 hours, she had 63 order requests. "Linda, I can't do 63 orders." "Then figure out what you can do." "But Margaret, this is a problem business owners dream of. You have demand. Now you decide how to meet it." Margaret thought for a long time. Then she made a decision. She posted an update. Overwhelmed, in the best way, by the response to holiday orders. To serve as many people as possible while maintaining quality, I'm doing things differently this year. I'm offering pre-orders for specific items with specific pickup dates. Once each item is sold out, that's it. Here's what I'm making. Thanksgiving pies. Pickup November 26th to 27th. Apple crumb, pumpkin, pecan. 20 of each available. $35 each. Christmas cookie boxes. Pickup December 21st to 22nd. Assorted homemade cookies, beautifully packaged. 30 boxes available. $40 each. Holiday cakes. Pickup December 23rd. Custom orders, limited to 10 only, starting at $75. She created another Google form with specific slots for each item and date. She posted it at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. By 8:30 p.m., everything was sold out. Margaret sat staring at her laptop in disbelief. She'd just pre-sold $6,000 worth of baked goods. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, what did I do?" "You built a successful business," Linda said, reading the numbers over her shoulder. "Now you need to execute. Can you do this?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. Let's make a plan." They mapped out every single baking day through Christmas. Margaret would need to buy ingredients in bulk. She'd need to start some items ahead and freeze them. She'd need help. I can help with packaging, Linda offered. And Jack can help too. Jack was Linda's husband, a retired engineer who loved projects. True to form, he showed up the next day with a plan for organizing Margaret's kitchen more efficiently, including building additional cooling racks and a better system for storing packaged goods. Every workflow can be optimized, he said cheerfully, measuring her counter space. Patricia from next door also volunteered. I can help with pickups. You'll need someone to check people in, hand them their orders, collect payment. I can do that. Margaret felt tears threatening again. You don't have to. I want to, Patricia said firmly. You gave me something to do when you started this business. Coming here, ordering your cakes, watching you build this, it's been the highlight of my year. Let me help. Over the next 5 weeks, Margaret baked more than she'd ever baked in her life. Linda and Patricia were there nearly every day. Jack had indeed optimized her kitchen workflow, and it made a real difference. She worked long hours but felt energized rather than exhausted. There was something about creating beautiful food for people's celebrations that filled her with purpose. Each pie, each cookie, each cake was going to be part of someone's holiday memory. That mattered. The pickup days were chaos. Controlled, organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Patricia ran the front door like a pro, checking names off lists and handing out orders. People oohed and awed over the beautiful packaging. Several asked to take photos with Margaret. One woman, picking up a cookie box, hugged Margaret tightly. You don't know me, but I follow you on Instagram. My husband left me this year. He said I was boring and predictable. Watching you start over has helped me believe I can too. Thank you. Margaret hugged her back, both of them crying a little. You're not boring, Margaret said. You're strong enough to start over. That's the opposite of boring. 2 days after Christmas, Margaret was cleaning up her kitchen, exhausted but satisfied, when her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello? Hi. Is this Margaret Sullivan from Margaret's Kitchen? Yes. My name is Teresa Chen. I'm a lifestyle reporter for the Bay Area Chronicle. I came across your Instagram account and I'd love to do a story about you and your business. Would you be interested? Margaret's first instinct was to say no, but something made her pause. What kind of story? We're doing a series called Second Act about people starting new careers or businesses later in life. Your story is exactly what we're looking for. Someone who reinvented themselves and built something inspiring. Margaret thought about the woman who'd hugged her during pickup. She thought about all the messages she'd received from people saying her journey had inspired them. Okay, she said. Yes. Teresa came over 3 days later with a photographer. She interviewed Margaret for 2 hours, asking about her life, her marriage, how she'd started the business, what it meant to her. Can I ask about your family? Teresa said gently. Your husband and kids? Margaret hesitated. Then she told the truth. My husband left me in September. He said I needed to find myself. My adult kids sided with him. They wanted space from me too. I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating. It was, but it also forced me to figure out who I am without them. Turns out, I'm someone who can build a business from scratch at 55. I'm someone who's stronger than I thought. Teresa wrote quickly. That's a powerful message. What would you say to other people facing similar situations? Margaret thought for a long moment. I'd say, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from experience. Every skill you learned, every hardship you survived, every moment you got back up. That's your foundation. You're not beginning, you're rebuilding, and you know more than you think you do. The photographer took pictures of Margaret in her kitchen, wearing her blue apron, holding a pie. The same kitchen where she'd cried herself empty weeks ago. The same apron she'd been wearing the day she found Robert's letter. Everything looked the same, but everything was different. The article ran on January 15th, online and in print. The headline read, At 55, she started from zero, how one woman turned heartbreak into a thriving home business. Teresa had written beautifully, telling Margaret's story with empathy and respect. She'd included quotes from customers, statistics about cottage food businesses, and several photos of Margaret and her baked goods. The article was shared widely on social media. By the end of the day, it had 50,000 views. By the end of the week, it was trending on several platforms. Margaret's Instagram account exploded. She gained 15,000 followers in 3 days. Her inbox was flooded with order requests, interview requests from other publications, and hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories of starting over. My husband left me at 48. I thought my life was over. Your story gave me hope. I'm 62 and just got laid off. I thought I was too old to start something new. You've inspired me to try. I'm showing this article to my mom. She's been depressed since retiring. She needs to see this. It was overwhelming, beautiful and terrifying and overwhelming. Linda came over to help Margaret figure out how to handle the response. You need to make some decisions. This could be a moment that launches you to a completely different level, or you could keep it small and manageable. There's no wrong answer, but you need to decide what you want. I don't know what I want. Yes, you do. Close your eyes. Picture your life in 1 year. What does it look like? Margaret closed her eyes. She saw her kitchen. She saw herself baking. She saw customers picking up orders, smiling. She saw herself tired but content. She saw herself with Linda, laughing. She saw herself alone, but not lonely. I want to keep doing this, she said, but I don't want to lose the joy of it. I don't want it to become just another thing I have to do for other people. Then we set boundaries. You decide how big you want to grow, and you stick to that. Together, they crafted a response strategy. Margaret posted on Instagram, I'm overwhelmed by the response to the article in the Bay Area Chronicle, and by all your kind messages. I've read every single one. Your stories have moved me to tears and reminded me that we're all more resilient than we know. Some housekeeping. I'm one person with one home kitchen. I can't scale up to meet demand without losing the quality and care that makes this special. So here's what I'm doing. I'm keeping my weekly limit of 15 orders, quality over quantity, always. Slots will continue to open, Wednesdays at 9 a.m., first come, first served. For people outside the Bay Area who've asked, I'm exploring shipping options for cookies and non-perishable items. More details coming soon. I'll continue to share my journey here, the successes and the struggles. Thank you for being part of this community. Starting over at 55 isn't easy, but it's possible. And it's worth it. Margaret *. The post got 8,000 likes and hundreds of supportive comments. People appreciated her honesty and her boundaries. Several business coaches reached out offering advice. A few other cottage food bakers reached out to say she'd inspired them. Margaret realized she wasn't just baking anymore. She'd become, somehow, accidentally, a spokesperson for starting over. It was a responsibility she hadn't asked for, but maybe it was one she was ready for. In February, 6 months after Robert had left, Margaret's phone rang with a number she recognized but hadn't seen in months. Emily. Her hand shook as she answered. Hello? Mom? Emily's voice was tentative. Hi. How are you? I'm okay. How are you? I'm good. I saw the article about your business. It's been shared all over social media. People at work were talking about it. Oh. Mom, I had no idea about any of it. The baking business, the Instagram, any of it. You asked for space. I gave you space. There was a long pause. I know. I read the article 5 times. I didn't realize how hard things were for you. Dad made it sound like you guys had grown apart, like it was mutual. Margaret felt anger rise in her chest, hot and sharp. She took a breath. It wasn't mutual. I'm realizing that. Mom, I think I owe you an apology. I took Dad's side without really listening to you. I thought I was being supportive of everyone, but I see now that I abandoned you when you needed me most. Margaret felt tears coming but kept her voice steady. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Margaret closed her eyes. She wanted to forgive Emily immediately, to say it was okay, that she understood. That was her default. Make everyone else comfortable, absorb the pain herself. But Linda's voice echoed in her head. Stop undervaluing yourself. Thank you for apologizing, Margaret said carefully. But I need you to understand something. You didn't just take your dad's side. You told me he was right. You said it was healthy for everyone. You made me feel like I was the problem. I know. You're right. I wasn't thinking about how that sounded. I was just... Dad seemed so sure, and you seemed lost, and I thought maybe time apart would be good for you. Emily, I wasn't lost. I was there, right where I'd always been. I didn't need to find myself. I needed my family not to give up on me. Emily was crying now. I know. I'm so sorry. Can I see you? Can we talk? Margaret wanted to say yes immediately, but she paused. I need to think about it. Oh, okay, I understand. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need time to think about what I need from you and whether I'm ready. Okay, I understand. Mom? Yes? I'm really proud of you. The business, starting over, all of it, you're amazing. Margaret felt her throat tighten. Thank you. That means a lot. After they hung up, Margaret sat in her kitchen for a long time. Then she called Linda. Emily called. And? She apologized. She wants to see me. How do you feel about that? Confused. Part of me wants to see her immediately. Part of me is still so angry. Both of those feelings are valid, Linda said. You don't have to choose. You can be angry and still love her. You can forgive her and still need time. This doesn't have to be all or nothing. When did you get so wise? Linda laughed. I've always been wise. You just finally started listening. Margaret smiled despite herself. What should I do? What do you want to do? I want to see her. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Margaret thought about it. Scared that she'll hurt me again. Scared that I'll let her back in too easily and forget how much it hurt. Scared that I'll be angry and ruin everything. Those are all reasonable fears. Here's what I think. You take your time. You decide what you need to feel safe. You set boundaries. And you remember that you're not the same woman she left 6 months ago. You're stronger now. You've proven that to yourself. Margaret nodded, even though Linda couldn't see her. You're right. Of course I am. Now, how many orders do you have this week? 15. All filled. Good. Focus on that. Focus on your business, your life, your healing. Emily will wait. And if she won't wait, that tells you something too. Margaret took a week to think before she called Emily back. Hi, she said when Emily answered. I've thought about it. I'd like to see you, but I have some conditions. Okay, anything. First, we meet somewhere neutral. Not the house. Too many memories there. Second, we meet alone, just you and me. Not you and Jake, not you and your dad, just us. Third, I need you to understand that forgiving you doesn't mean forgetting what happened. We're going to have to rebuild trust, and that takes time. I understand, completely. When can we meet? Next Sunday, there's a cafe in Oakland called Harvest, 1 o'clock. I'll be there. Mom? Yes? Thank you for giving me a chance. Margaret hung up and took a deep breath. She felt shaky but proud of herself. She'd stated her needs clearly. She'd set boundaries. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have done that. The week crawled by. Margaret baked her orders, posted on Instagram, and tried not to overthink the meeting. Linda checked in every day. You nervous? Terrified. Good. That means you care. But remember, you're not begging for her approval anymore. You're two adults trying to repair a relationship. You're equals. Sunday arrived. Margaret dressed carefully in jeans and a soft blue sweater, the same color as her baking apron. She wore it for luck. She arrived at Harvest 15 minutes early, and ordered tea, sitting at a corner table where she could see the door. Emily arrived exactly on time. She looked thinner than Margaret remembered, tired. She was wearing her work clothes, slacks and a blazer, even though it was Sunday. When she saw Margaret, her eyes filled with tears. "Mom." "Hi, sweetie." They hugged, awkward and careful, like strangers learning each other again. They sat down, and for a moment, neither knew what to say. "Your Instagram is incredible," Emily finally said. "I've been following it since I saw the article. Every post, every photo. You look so happy." "I am happy, happier than I've been in a long time. I never knew you wanted to do something like this." Margaret considered that. "I didn't know either. I never had space to want anything. I was always wanting things for other people, for your dad, for you and Jake. I didn't know what I wanted for myself." Emily looked down at her coffee. Did I make you feel like you couldn't want things?" "Sometimes. But mostly I did that to myself. I made myself small because I thought that's what being a good wife and mother meant." "That's not what it means. I know that now." They talked for 2 hours. Emily cried a lot. She apologized again, more specifically this time. She admitted she'd been so wrapped up in her career and her own life that she hadn't really looked at her parents' marriage clearly. She'd taken her father's narrative at face value because it was easier than questioning it. "He made it sound like you were both unhappy, like this was a mutual decision to give each other space to grow," Emily said. "I didn't know he'd left a letter and just disappeared. I didn't know about the money situation. I didn't know any of it." "Did you ask?" Emily flinched. "No, I didn't. I should have." "Yes," Margaret agreed. "You should have." "I don't have an excuse. I was a bad daughter. You made a mistake. A big one. But that doesn't make you a bad person." Emily wiped her eyes. "How are you being so kind about this?" Margaret thought about that. "Because I've learned something in the last 6 months. Anger is useful. It gives you energy to change things. But bitterness poisons you from the inside. I can be angry about what happened and still love you. Those things can both be true." "Have you talked to Dad?" "No, and I don't plan to. That part of my life is over." "He's with someone, you know. Sharon. She works at his company." Margaret felt a pang, not of heartbreak but of vindication. "I assumed. Is she younger than me?" 42. "Of course." Margaret almost laughed. "Well, I hope they're very happy together." "Are you really okay?" "I'm getting there. Some days are harder than others. But Emily, I built something. On my own. I proved to myself that I don't need him or anyone to have value. That's worth something." Emily reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "I've been so stupid. You're the strongest person I know, and I didn't see it." "I didn't see it either. Sometimes you need to be broken to discover how strong you really are." They talked about logistics after that. Emily wanted to see Margaret regularly, once a week maybe. She wanted to help with the business if Margaret would let her. She was good at social media marketing. She could help grow the Instagram presence. Margaret considered it. "Let's start with the visits. Let's rebuild our relationship first. The business stuff can come later." "That's fair." As they were leaving, Emily hugged her mother tightly. "I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I made you doubt that." "I love you too. And Emily, don't do this with Jake. Whatever happened between you two and your dad, fix it before it's too late. Some relationships can't be repaired. I'll call him today." By March, Margaret's kitchen had a 6-week waiting list. The 15 weekly slots filled in under a minute every Wednesday. She'd started a newsletter with 2,000 subscribers. Her Instagram had grown to 35,000 followers. More importantly, she'd started saying no. When a food blogger offered to feature her if she'd give free products, Margaret said no. When a local grocery store offered to stock her pies but wanted to pay wholesale prices that would barely cover her costs, Margaret said no. When someone demanded a custom cake for the next day and offered to pay double, Margaret said no. Each no felt like a small victory. She was setting boundaries, valuing herself, protecting her peace. Emily had been coming to lunch every Sunday for 6 weeks. They were still rebuilding, still careful with each other, but it was progress. Emily had respected Margaret's boundaries about the business. She offered advice only when asked and never pushed. Jake still hadn't called. Emily said she'd tried to talk to him, but he'd told her he wasn't ready. Margaret tried not to let it hurt, but it did. She grieved the relationship they'd had, or the one she'd thought they'd had. "Give him time," Linda advised. "He's young, and he's stubborn. He'll come around or he won't, but you can't wait for him to validate you. You have to live your life." Margaret knew she was right. She was learning to live with the uncertainty, with the loss. It was part of her story now, but it wasn't the whole story. In April, something unexpected happened. Teresa Chen, the reporter who'd written the original article, called again. "Margaret, hi, I have a proposition for you. The Chronicle wants to do a follow-up feature, a video series about your business journey. 6 short episodes following you through a typical week, talking about the lessons you've learned, showing other people how to start their own cottage food businesses. What do you think?" Margaret's first instinct was panic. "I don't know anything about video. I don't know how to teach people." "You know your experience. That's what people want. Real, honest, practical advice from someone who's done it. Plus, the videographer would handle all the technical stuff. You'd just be yourself." Margaret almost said no. Then she thought about all the messages she'd received from people saying her story had inspired them. She thought about the woman who'd hugged her at Christmas pickup. "Let me think about it. Can I call you back in a couple days?" "Of course." Margaret talked to Linda, to Emily, to Patricia. Everyone encouraged her to do it. "You have something to say," Linda told her. "You've learned lessons the hard way. Why not share them?" Margaret called Teresa back. "Yes, let's do it." The videographer, a young woman named Ashley, came to Margaret's house for a week in May. She set up cameras in the kitchen, followed Margaret through her routine, and asked thoughtful questions. "What do you wish you'd known when you started?" Ashley asked while filming Margaret rolling out pie dough. Margaret thought about it. "I wish I'd known that I didn't have to have everything figured out before I started. I was so scared because I didn't know the whole path. But you can't see the whole path. You can only see the next step, and that's enough." What was the hardest part? Believing I was worth it. Believing my work had value. I wanted to give everything away for free or charge almost nothing. I thought that's what being a good person meant. But undervaluing yourself doesn't make you good. It just makes you exhausted and resentful. What advice would you give someone who wants to start their own business? Margaret paused, her hands still on the dough. Start small. Start with what you have. Don't wait until conditions are perfect because they never will be. And most importantly, don't let anyone tell you you're too old, too inexperienced, or too anything. You're exactly who you need to be. The video series, titled At 55, She Started from Zero, The Journey, launched in June. Each episode was 10 minutes long, covering different aspects of her business: the legal setup, pricing strategies, time management, dealing with difficult customers, staying motivated, and balancing growth with sustainability. The Chronicle promoted it heavily on social media. The first episode got 100,000 views in the first week. Margaret watched the numbers climb with disbelief. "Why do people care so much?" "Because you're giving them permission," Emily said. She'd come over to watch the latest episode with Margaret and Linda. "You're showing them it's possible. Most people feel trapped. They think their lives are set. You're proof that change is possible." The comments on the videos were overwhelming. "I'm 49 and just got divorced. This series is giving me hope. Started my own cottage food business because of you. Made my first sale today. I showed this to my mom. She's 58 and always wanted to start a catering business but thought she was too old. She's researching permits now. Thank you for being so honest about the hard parts. Most business content is just toxic positivity. This feels real." Margaret read every comment. She responded to as many as she could. She started getting emails from other cottage food bakers asking for advice. She created a simple guide, what she wished someone had told her, and put it on her website for free. By July, Margaret's kitchen had been running for 10 months. She'd made $45,000 in revenue and $31,000 in net profit. She'd paid off the small credit card debt Robert had left. She'd built an emergency fund. She'd even taken a vacation, a weekend trip with Linda to Napa. More than the money, though, she had built a life. A real life, on her own terms. In August, 1 year after Robert had left, Margaret was preparing for Saturday pickups when her doorbell rang. Patricia was already there helping, so Margaret didn't think much of it. "Margaret," Patricia called from the front door, her voice strange. "You have a visitor." Margaret wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the door. Jake stood on her porch. Her son, who she hadn't seen or spoken to in a year, who had erased her from his social media, who had sided with his father without a single conversation. He looked older, thinner, tired. "Hi, Mom." Margaret's hand went to her throat. "Jake, can I come in?" She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him how much he'd hurt her. She wanted to slam the door. Instead, she stepped aside. "The kitchen is chaos right now. Patricia and I are doing pickups. Can you wait in the living room?" "Yeah, of course." For the next 2 hours, Margaret fulfilled orders, smiled at customers, accepted compliments on her baking, and tried not to think about her son sitting alone in the next room. Patricia gave her concerned looks but didn't ask questions. When the last customer left, Margaret walked into the living room. Jake was looking at photos on the wall, photos of him and Emily as kids, family vacations, Christmases. "I didn't know you were still in California," Margaret said. "I thought you were in Austin." "I was. I moved back 3 months ago. New job in San Jose." 3 months ago. Yeah. "And you're just now coming to see me." Jake turned to face her. His eyes were red. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom." "Why now?" "Because Emily wouldn't stop talking about you. About how wrong we were. About what Dad really did. And I saw the videos. All of them. I watched you talk about starting over, about believing in yourself, about being told you needed to find yourself when you were right there the whole time." His voice cracked. "And I realized I did that to you. I helped make you feel worthless." Margaret felt tears threatening but kept her voice steady. "Yes, you did. I was so angry at you growing up. You were always so accommodating, so passive. You never stood up for yourself. You let Dad walk all over you. You let everyone walk all over you. And I resented you for it. When Dad said you needed to find yourself, I thought he was right. I thought maybe you'd finally become someone stronger." Margaret absorbed this. It hurt, but it was also honest. "You know what's funny?" she said quietly. "You're right. I was passive. I did let people walk all over me. But you know why? Because I thought that's what love was. I thought sacrificing everything, my wants, my needs, my voice, made me a good mother and wife. I thought making myself small made everyone else comfortable. I know, and that's not your fault. No, but it was my choice. And part of starting over has been owning that. I can't blame your father for everything, even though he's the one who left. I lost myself long before he walked away. I just didn't realize it until I was forced to look." Jake was crying now. "I should have called. After Dad left, I should have checked on you." "Yes, you should have." "Emily said you almost didn't make it, that you were really bad for a while." Margaret thought about those first weeks. The fog, the hopelessness, the crying on the kitchen table. It was hard. The hardest thing I've ever been through.
"And I wasn't there." "No, you weren't. Can you forgive me?" Margaret looked at her son, really looked at him. He was 25 years old, still so young, still figuring out who he was. She'd been 25 once, thought she knew everything, made mistakes that hurt people. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. "I love you. But trust is earned, not given. Emily has been showing up every week for 5 months. She's doing the work. If you want to repair this, you'll have to do the work too." "I will. Whatever it takes." Then we start small. We have lunch next week. We talk. We see what happens. Okay, thank you. Jake? Yeah? I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not going to shrink myself to make you comfortable anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be with who I actually am, not who you want me to be. I want to know who you actually are. I think I never really did before. Margaret nodded. Okay then. Next Sunday, 1 o'clock. There's a cafe in Oakland called Harvest. After Jake left, Margaret sat in her living room for a long time. Patricia came in and sat beside her. You okay? I think so. It's strange. A year ago, I would have done anything to have my kids back. I would have apologized for things that weren't my fault. I would have accepted any crumbs they offered. But now you know your worth. Yeah, now I know my worth. September 15th marked 1 year since Margaret had found Robert's letter. 1 year since her life had imploded. Linda suggested they celebrate. Celebrate, Margaret had said. The worst day of my life? No. Celebrate survival. Celebrate what you've built. Celebrate the fact that you didn't just survive, you thrived. So they planned a small party. Margaret, Linda, and Jack, Patricia, Emily, and Jake, who had been showing up every Sunday for 6 weeks and slowly, carefully, earning his way back into her life. They gathered in Margaret's kitchen on a Saturday evening after pickups were done. Margaret had made her signature apple crumb pie, plus her lemon lavender cake and fresh cookies. Speech! Patricia called out, raising her glass of wine. Oh no! Margaret started. Speech! Everyone echoed. Margaret stood blushing, holding her own glass. Okay. I'm not good at speeches. You're great at speeches? Emily said. I've watched all your videos like 50 times. Margaret smiled. Fine. 1 year ago today, I found a letter that changed everything. It told me I needed to find myself, like I'd been lost. But I wasn't lost. I was right here. I just couldn't see myself clearly because I'd made myself invisible. She looked around at the faces watching her, people who'd supported her, challenged her, believed in her. This year has been the hardest of my life. But it's also been the most transformative. I've learned things about myself I never knew. I'm stronger than I thought. I'm braver than I imagined. I'm capable of building something real and valuable. And most importantly, I don't need anyone else to validate my worth. I know it myself. Here's to Margaret, Linda raised her glass. To Margaret! They ate pie and cake, told stories, laughed. Emily showed everyone the latest Instagram analytics. Margaret's kitchen now had 50,000 followers. Jake talked about how he'd been telling his friends about his mom's business, bragging about her. At one point, Margaret stepped outside for some air. Linda followed her. How are you really doing? Margaret thought about it. Good. Really good. I mean, some days are still hard. Sometimes I wake up and feel lonely. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Robert had never left. But then I think, would I have ever done this if he hadn't? Would I have ever discovered this part of myself? Probably not. So maybe it wasn't a disaster. Maybe it was necessary. You're not giving him credit for this, are you? Because you did this. You built this. I know, but I'm trying to find a way to be grateful for the journey, even though it was painful. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. That's wisdom, Margaret. That's growth. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the stars. Linda? Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For showing up. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For being bossy and pushy and making me do hard things. Linda laughed. That's what sisters are for. I don't know if I would have made it without you. Yes, you would have. You're stronger than you think, but I'm glad I got to be here for it. By October, Margaret had made a major decision. She was going to write a book. The idea had come from dozens of messages asking for more detailed guidance on starting a cottage food business. The free guide on her website was helpful but basic. People wanted more. The real details, the emotional journey, the practical steps, everything. I'm not a writer, Margaret protested to Linda. You write Instagram captions that get thousands of likes. You wrote that guide that people print out and reference like a Bible. You can write. A book is different. So get help. Hire an editor. But Margaret, you have a story people need to hear. You have knowledge people want. Why not share it? Margaret started outlining. She worked on it in the mornings before baking, the quiet early hours when the house was still and her mind was fresh. She wrote about the legal setup of a cottage food business, about pricing and marketing, about time management and scaling sustainably. But she also wrote about the emotional journey, about grief and resilience, about starting over at midlife, about learning your worth, about the difference between being alone and being lonely. Emily, who worked in marketing, helped her think about audience and structure. Jake, surprisingly, turned out to be a good editor. He was honest about what worked and what didn't, pushing her to be more specific and less generic. By December, Margaret had a 200-page manuscript titled Starting from Zero, a practical and emotional guide to beginning again at midlife. She sent it to a literary agent who'd reached out after seeing the Chronicle videos. The agent loved it and sold it to a publisher within 3 weeks. It's really happening, Margaret told Linda on the phone. I'm going to be a published author. Of course you are. You're Margaret Sullivan. You can do anything. The book launched in March, 18 months after Robert had left. It became a regional bestseller and then a national one. NPR interviewed her. She was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference. Margaret stood on stage in front of 500 people, wearing a dress Emily had helped her pick out, and told her story. The abandonment, the grief, the first shaky steps, the business, the growth. Someone asked me recently if I've forgiven my ex-husband, she said. And I realized forgiveness isn't really the point. I don't spend my energy thinking about him anymore. I'm too busy thinking about what's next for me. That's not forgiveness or bitterness, it's just moving forward. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of women lined up to talk to her. They shared their own stories of divorce, job loss, empty nests, and starting over. They asked questions. They asked for advice. They asked for hope. Margaret gave what she could. That night, in her hotel room, she looked at her Instagram. A photo she'd posted that morning, her standing in her kitchen, holding her book, wearing her blue apron, had gotten 15,000 likes. The caption read, 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. Today, I held my published book. Your life is never over. It's just changing chapters. And sometimes the best chapters are the ones you never saw coming. Emily had commented, so proud of you, Mom. Jake had commented, my mom is the most badass person I know. Even Robert's sister had commented, you're an inspiration, Margaret. I always knew you had this in you. Margaret smiled. She didn't need their validation anymore, but it was nice to have anyway. Part 18, Full Circle. In June, 2 years after Robert had left, Margaret got an unexpected email. Dear Margaret, you don't know me, but my name is Sharon. I'm the woman Robert left you for. I know you have no reason to read this or respond, and I'll understand if you don't. But I wanted to reach out. Robert and I broke up 3 months ago. During our relationship, he often talked about you, usually in negative terms, saying you were too passive, too dependent, too boring. I believed him. But after we broke up, I started following your Instagram, I read your book, and I realized that everything he said about you was a lie. Or maybe it was his perception, but perception isn't truth. You're not boring. You're not passive. You're incredibly strong and inspiring. I wanted to apologize for my role in hurting you. I didn't think about the real person behind the bad marriage story Robert told. I'm sorry. I also wanted to thank you. Your book and your story helped me realize I deserve better than a man who talks badly about the women in his life. You probably don't care, but I thought you should know. Your ex-husband didn't leave because you weren't enough. He left because he wasn't enough. I hope you're well. Sharon. Margaret read the email 3 times. She thought about responding with anger, with vindication, with, I told you so. Instead, she wrote back, Dear Sharon, thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty and your apology. You're right that Robert's perception of me was skewed, but I also wasn't entirely the person I am now. I was passive. I did make myself small. Not because I was weak, but because I thought that's what love required. I've learned better since then. I'm sorry your relationship ended, but I'm glad you're recognizing your worth. That's the most important lesson any of us can learn. I hope you find happiness and peace. Margaret. She hit send and closed her laptop. Who was that? Linda asked. They were sitting in Margaret's kitchen, Linda helping fold boxes for shipping orders. Margaret had expanded to ship cookies nationwide, and business was booming. Robert's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, apologizing for her role in the affair. Wow, how do you feel? Margaret thought about it. Nothing, really. Maybe a little sorry for her. Mostly just neutral. It's not my story anymore. That's huge, Margaret. That's real healing. Yeah, I guess it is. Epilogue. 3 years later. 3 years after finding the letter that changed everything, Margaret Sullivan sat in her kitchen. The same kitchen where she'd cried herself empty, where she'd baked her first pie for sale, where she'd filmed videos that reached millions. She was 58 now. Her hair was more gray than brown, and she'd stopped coloring it. She liked it. It felt honest. Margaret's kitchen was still going strong, though she'd modified her model. She now baked only 3 days a week and had hired Patricia part-time to help with packaging and administration. She'd written a second book, The Midlife Renaissance, about reinvention at any age. She did speaking engagements once a month. Emily came for dinner every Sunday. Jake visited twice a month. He lived in the city now, close enough to drop by. They'd rebuilt their relationships slowly, honestly, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. Margaret had started dating a bit. Nothing serious, just coffee and dinners with kind, interesting men. She'd learned she liked her independence. She might share her life with someone eventually, but she'd never again make herself small for someone else's comfort. Linda and Jack were over for dinner tonight. Patricia and her husband, too. Margaret had made her famous apple crumb pie, and they were all laughing about something Jack had said. "Can I take a photo?" Emily asked. "For your Instagram?" "Sure," Margaret said. Emily snapped a picture. Margaret in her blue apron, surrounded by people she loved, laughing in her kitchen, a pie on the counter. Later, Margaret posted it with the caption, "3 years ago, I was abandoned and broken. Today, I'm surrounded by love and purpose. The journey from then to now hasn't been easy, but it's been mine, and that's everything. To anyone starting over at midlife, you're not too old, it's not too late. The best chapter of your life might be the one you write after everything falls apart. Start from where you are. Start from zero. Start. Margaret." The post got 45,000 likes, but Margaret barely noticed. She was too busy living her life to worry about the metrics anymore. She'd started from zero, and she'd built everything.